Hi everyone, it's Davey Mooney coming to you from the University of North Texas where I run the jazz guitar program. I'm a Benedetto artist, Sunnyside Records artist, got my new CD live at National Sawdust, got my Mel Bay book Personalizing Jazz Vocabulary, and a shout out to Jazz Guitar Today for collaborating with me on these videos. Please subscribe. It's a great online magazine. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about augmented harmony, augmented triads, and in a previous video I talked about diminished chords and diminished harmony, which is a very big subject, and I'm approaching both of these harmonic concepts from a very personal standpoint, and almost like talking about my history with diminished and augmented harmony. I think largely because in jazz, as a jazz improviser, I think the way we deal with these theoretical concepts is very hands-on and very functional in the sense of we need to know what we can get from this theory that we can apply in a playing situation. Like, I've got this song with these chords, what do I need to get where I need to go? And yeah, I think the sound of augmented triads and other expressions of augmented harmony are really useful. So last time I talked about, or last time, depending on what order you're watching these videos, the diminished video, I talked about how the half-whole diminished scale was my first sort of entree into the world of diminished harmony and diminished sounds, and how at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, I remember Clyde Kerr Jr. talking about the half-whole diminished scale, and Hank Mackey showed me how to play it. And particularly, like if I say on a C7 chord, resolving to some kind of F, like an F major or F minor, the idea that you can use the half-whole diminished scale on that C7 chord with certain alterations that it contains, like flat 9, sharp 9. In addition to like a C7 arpeggio, you have the flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, and natural 13, that combination of altered pitches. If we think about an augmented sound, really in that context, if you have a C7 and you just play a C augmented triad, which is C, E, G sharp, it's a series of major thirds. That's actually a really cool sound to resolve to an F as well. You could do things like this. Like the tune Minority, where the end of the melody goes. It's a very good, I call this in my book, I call that a 5/8 note resolution cell. The idea that you have some, say on like the second half of a bar, a C7 go into F, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Resolution. 4/8 notes that incorporate maybe some alterations and some dissonant harmony that then resolve on the 5th, 8th note on beat 1 of a 1 chord. So that's a really cool idea, and it's very, it's a very efficient type of use of harmony, and an augmented triad gets you the notes that you need in a very compact form, since it's only three notes, C, E, and G sharp. I also like that fingering on the guitar. The idea that you would have, 2 notes on the first string, E, C, then the G sharp, E, 1 note each on those strings, and then 2 notes. So that alteration of 2 notes, then 1 note on a string twice, and then 2 notes again. I like that because I can do the pull-off. And yeah, I use that all over the place. I feel like it's a really, just gets you compact. It gets that sound of the flat 13. And so going back to maybe say one of the differences between the way I think about diminished harmony and augmented harmony is the idea that on that C7, the diminished has that natural 13, with flat 9, 13, whereas the augmented sound, you've got that flat 13, which to me is very different. It almost has a different psychological effect, if you will. And in terms of scales, we talked about the half-whole diminished scale. And now we're just talking about the augmented triad. I mean, I guess the most sort of obvious place where that augmented triad, manifests itself would be like the whole tone scale, which is a series of a symmetrical scale of all whole steps. The idea. In the key of, I don't know if it's really in a key, but on a C7, starting on C and going up in whole steps. You could use that to resolve it. Another place where you find an augmented triad, there's actually a lot of places, but for instance, the super Locrian scale, which is a mode of the melodic minor scale, and I'm a product of jazz education of the 90s and early 2000s, so melodic minor applications I find really cool and very useful in my playing. So the idea that it's a C7 chord and you have a D flat melodic minor scale, so you go up a half step and play a melodic minor scale and you get this. And those do occur in nature. I was thinking about, I did a video on conception, in the bridge of conception, where it goes, so B7 going to E goes, that's a C melodic minor scale up a half step. So it does happen. And so back to the key of C, there's an augmented triad in there, along with another collection of pitches, where this scale is actually, you can contrast that with the half whole diminished in the sense that they both have flat 9, sharp 9, and sharp 11. But then the difference would be that this super Locrian scale has a flat 13, and the half whole diminished would have a natural 13. So maybe the way these scales came to me in my development, I remember Hank Mackey showing me, he called it the jazz minor scale, melodic minor up a half step on a dominant chord. And then Mr. Kerr talking about the half whole diminished, I think I naturally contrasted those scales. And so to me, what loomed really large is the idea of the flat 13 versus natural 13, combined with those other altered pitches. So the idea that, that type of a 5-note resolution cell, a C7, using that augmented triad resolving to the 9, I could also go, that would be maybe a more augmented cell where I'm playing, and it's really an A triad, right? And so that difference, I try to work with that in my playing. Sometimes when I'm on a dominant, thinking how I'm going to resolve it, I actually do think sometimes, am I going to go diminished here? Am I going to go more augmented? But that's very personal to me. So just a little bit more about the harmony of it. So I have this C augmented triad, right? And we're saying that a C augmented right on the root on a C7 will resolve nicely to F. Another thing about augmented chords, how we said that with diminished, there's only 3 diminished chords. We were talking about C7 and a D flat diminished. Once you get to E, you really have the same notes. They're just in an inversion. So with an augmented triad, so if we go down here and we look at C augmented, you can see with the augmenteds, there are 4 of them because they divide the octave evenly with major thirds. And mathematically it works out so that you have a C augmented, D flat augmented, D augmented, E flat augmented. Once you get to E, it's the same pitches. Same thing on G sharp. So if we know that a C augmented can resolve to some kind of F, right, and we know that a C augmented and an E augmented and an A flat augmented are all the same pitches, then logically C to F, a C could also go to A. And a C augmented could also go to a D flat, because C augmented is the same as E augmented, and it's also the same as G sharp augmented. Right, so and one way a cool augmented resolution idea that I like a lot. I found in on a great Chris Cheek record called "I Wish I Knew." There's a Kurt Rosenwinkel solo on the tune "Stairway to the Stars," and it's really cool. There's no piano, so he can do all kinds of wild harmonic stuff and get away with it. But there's a turnaround. I think it's the first A, the 3/6, 2/5/1 turnaround, which is in the key of C. And Kurt Rosenwinkel does this crazy thing where on the E he plays like an E augmented triad. On the A, he goes up a half step and plays an F augmented triad. And he plays some whole tone things too, as well on each of these chords. Then on the D7, or the turnaround, the D, he plays an F sharp augmented triad. And on the G, he plays a G. So you have the bass player doing a regular 3/6 to 5, and he does this crazy thing. I don't remember the exact line, but y'all can find it. Remember, he resolves to an A natural on the C, so that's pretty wild, right? But if you think about it, E augmented, okay, that's 5 of A, and F augmented triad, well, F augmented is also an A augmented triad, so that's 5 of D. F sharp, again, that's still a D augmented triad in an inversion. It's 5 of G to C. So in that cycle of dominance, you can actually, if you go up chromatically with augmented triads, you can do like a cycle of 5/1, 5/1, 5/1, which is pretty wild. I feel like I heard Johnny Smith do that once too, but I don't remember. So yeah, that's a cool way to use the augmented sound. One other thought about it too is another expression of place where you encounter augmented triads and maybe a scale to where they live is the hexatonic scale, the augmented hexatonic scale. So you have, like, if you take an augmented triad like that C, hexatonic means 6 pitches. Take that C augmented triad, and one way to think about it is all the notes a half step below that C augmented triad. And in that way, it's kind of like, the half whole diminished scale. Another way to think about it, if you have a D flat diminished 7, the C half whole diminished scale is a D flat diminished 7 arpeggio plus all the notes a half step below it. Oops. Right, and so then a C, hexatonic augmented scale. You can think of like a C augmented triad, and all the notes a half step below that. So you get a 6-note scale, right? Because an augmented triad it's a triad, it's 3 notes versus a 7th chord. Where in the half whole diminished scale you get 8 pitches. So that's kind of a cool sound. Sometimes I like to bring that into the same context of a C7 resolving to F. It's fun too because you get a B natural. It's like that. You're not supposed to be able to play a B natural on a C7, but I do it anyway. Something like that. There's a great John Coltrane tune called "One Down, One Up," and there's various live versions. I transcribed one of them, but it's big. I guess in a certain sense he's actually playing like a B flat augmented triad and then everything up a half step from there. But it's the same basic idea, and it's a really cool tune because it's got the form of, say, So What or Impressions, but instead of AABA with Dorian sounds, it's AABA with augmented scale, hexatonic scale. So you kind of have like a B flat pedal for 2 A sections, and then he goes down a whole step. And they just solo over that sound, and that's really cool. One more thought before I'm gonna play a little bit, exploring some of these sounds. But I remember being from New Orleans and being a modern jazz guitarist in New Orleans. It's always kind of interesting because a lot of the gigs are in the more traditional jazz realm, and I like that music a lot, traditional jazz, and I try to dabble. I don't, I respect that music too much to consider myself a, great practitioner of it because I haven't studied it on a deep level like I have modern jazz. But whenever I would get a more traditional or swing context, I always found that augmented sounds or an augmented triad on a dominant sounds like it works and it fits in a more early jazz, traditional jazz context. And I remember a friend of mine called me on the phone in the same situation in New Orleans, like getting called to do a gig in the more traditional realm and thinking like, well, I've got all this modern language that I've been working on my whole life. He called me up like, what should I play? And I told him like play augmented triads on the dominants. And then you get a cool, somehow it fits and it doesn't sound like you're playing the wrong kind of stuff, the wrong flavor, because it's about the flavors, y'all. I'm always looking for the right seasonings, the right flavors for these tunes. So anyway, I'm going to play a little bit on a song that I think has a very strong augmented flavor, the tune Juju, which is a Wayne Shorter tune from, I guess, 64, 65. Really amazing record and a great recording. Yeah, great tune. And you hear, especially McCoy Tyner on this song, his whole tone approach. It's really, really one of the great solos and performances. So I'll play a few choruses and explore some of these sounds that we've been talking about. All right, enjoy. Thanks.